Oh my goodness. Day offs. My gosh. All right, what's up, folks? This is Jason Tucker. This is WPwatercooler, episode number 190. 190, folks. We got
Oh, it's closing in.
100.
It's Memorial Day.
It's Memorial Day. So
I remembered
today's
that.
topic is learn more WordPress through side projects. So we're going to kind of talk about all the cool things that we're working on the side, things that we enjoy working on, and how we've kind of learned more by doing side projects. So let's go around the room real quick and get everyone introduced. We're going to go with Chris. Chris, tell us all about yourself.
My name's Chris Lema. I blog over at chrislema.com, and that's about it.
That's it.
It's a short resume.
Doesn't want to talk about his humidor. All right. I get it. George, what about you?
My name is George Stefanis. I work for Automatic, leading a team, doing all sorts of maintenance and picking things up and making things that have been long since abandoned and not suck anymore.
That is really interesting.
What about you, Robert?
My name's Robert Gillmer. I build stuff with WordPress. I do a lot with the local meetups, and I'm a WordCamp junkie.
Nice. What about you, Russ?
My name is Russ. I work at WebDevStudios under the Maintain umbrella. I do support, and I run the WordCamp Vegas, all the stuff here.
Sweet. What about you, Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Wefald. I'm the production manager at Zeek Interactive. I'm at Sarah Wefald on Twitter. This is Basil.
What the hell is that thing behind you?
That's Basil Hayden. He's my hairless pussy.
Also known as Satan.
How about you, Say?
My name is Say, if I could remember it now. And I make WordPress, love WordPress, feature
You do WordPress, you love WordPress, you make WordPress, come on.
Make, love, do, just go on. Add Say Read Media, add Say Read Media, that's all you need to know. Move on, move on.
The last minute of conversation has broken my brain. I'm just going to sit there now.
Fidel Castro, how about you?
I'm Steve Zengit. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OSU.
Today's Steve Zengit will be played by Paul Clark.
Apparently.
Hey, is there an OC meetup tonight? Because normally every Monday you're like, and tonight is the
come on
development.
by. Yeah, go on by. I should be there.
The barbecue will be running?
Wait a week. Sarah will be there.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll totally be there.
I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me over at Jason Tucker on Twitter, and I blog over at jasontucker.us and WPmedia.pro. Folks, today we're recording on a very special day. I'm wearing my Marine shirt here. I want to say thank you all for the folks that have, kind of taken the ultimate sacrifice and have helped out this country. I appreciate it. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about side projects. What do you guys think?
I'm for them.
Sorry,
Side projects is how I learned how to WordPress, essentially.
Yeah.
At my old job, it was a small band management company, and I was kind of loosely in charge of the entire internet.
those are the best jobs where you're loosely in charge of the entire internet.
Yeah,
you control that box with a bleeping red light on the top?
Exactly. I had like a little red button on it to just shut the whole thing down.
The big router on the mountain?
Oh, yeah. So musicians don't tend to have a very large budget for websites, and I wanted to learn this stuff anyway, and I'd be going to this, meetup thing. So I was like, okay, you know what? Band with no budget, I'll make your website. So I started doing that, and then realized I was super over my head, had no idea what I was doing. So I started making little websites outside of the office, and then taking what I learned back into the office. And then that turned into a job making WordPress websites for us. So that was kind of crazy.
Nice.
I think that should be on the .org.
I got a witness.
I think that should be on the .org homepage. Band, do you not have any money? Use WordPress.
Well, that's also the problem.
I get it.
Probably a whole other show, but there are a couple bands I've said, dude, just go Squarespace. You can't do this.
Sure.
Man, honestly, that's one of the things that side projects really excel at. They are absolutely stupendous at taking something that you're passionate about and turning it into something that you're good at.
Yeah.
Just as a way of building experience, because it lets you build up projects under your belt that then you can use on a resume and lets you actually get paid to do something that originally, who's going to pay you to do something that you've never actually have any experience at?
You'd be surprised how many people pay people to do something that they don't have any experience at. But
see Taco Bell.
Say, speaking from experience here.
No, but there is something to be said for when you take on a side project and you're a fresh noob, as it were. I just want to put a caveat here. It's really important to let people know that that's why you're doing it for free, and don't pretend that you know what you're doing necessarily, because that's misleading. Mm-hmm. And I've had clients who are the recipient of that side project, and then, you know, the person's like, yeah, I can do whatever, and then they get in over their head, and then they can't pull it off, and then the person who's I'm not saying you did this, by the way, Sarah, because you're a responsible human.
Like, I'm doing this for this because I don't know how to do this, and I'm learning. They're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, they're like, we don't care.
But there's a part of that also, even if you are experienced and take on a side project, it's important to make the distinction as to what you're offering, right? So if I'm taking something on as a side project, I'm very clear as to my time, the primary use of my time is going to be for work, right? I work on your side project when I can, right? But if you're expecting a quick turnaround for a side project that I'm doing for free, then that's just not the right fit.
I had a client I actually had to have that conversation with. They texted me. They're not a client, actually. They're a friend. And they texted me, like, when do you think you can get to this? And I was like, after everything else, maybe next week. And I was like, this is not prioritized. I'm sorry.
There's a difference if you're taking on a side project for yourself or if you're taking on a side project for somebody else, right?
That's what I was going to say.
If you're doing it for somebody else, it's important that you set those expectations up front.
If you're doing it for yourself, just go all in. Lie to yourself as much as you want.
A lot of my side projects are actually for me, right? And so it's less about worrying about managing expectations, and it's less about learning a new skill, though that is always fun and part of it. It's a lot of times you are, as an entrepreneur, you're investigating new spaces, right? And you're playing in new areas, and you're saying, how big is that market? And a lot of times, you know, fundamentally, right, people go, I don't know how to size a market. I don't know how to determine whether there's any traction in this space. And you say, well, I'm going to go build something on the side and see if it catches. Now, if it does catch, and if we kind of play out the steps and it grows, that may become my main job. But until then, these are several different exercises that are side projects, as you just kind of lean into it a little bit, give it a little fuel, and see if it takes off.
I think building on top of that, though, too, Chris, is like I didn't know how to sell things digitally, so I started a side project where I was using EDD or I was using WooCommerce, and I became better at those kind of plugins to where that sharpened my skill. Now I can actually support people who use WooCommerce or EDD, something like that. Absolutely.
I've been doing that mostly to explore themes. So the themes that are out there, clients are always asking for recommendations or whatnot, and I want to play around with them first and see if they're any good or whatever. So I've done a lot of that with themes, just trying out different themes, just plugging them in, playing around with them, the builder themes, or just all the themes in the repository and being like, which one of you are broken? Which one of you are not?
Which one of you does this thing that I'm trying to do? Clearly you don't. Next.
Clearly you don't.
Well, and there is a good way to get involved directly within the WordPress community on a side project. I mean, there's a lot of plugins and themes that have been abandoned, or there's plugins and themes that need help. You can get involved on the side if your goal is just to learn WordPress or to help grow a plugin that's out there.
My actual side project that I was working on in January turned into being submitted for Plugin Palooza, and it got submitted, and so now I've focused the last 3 weekends nothing but my plugin for Plugin Palooza.
I should note that Plugin-A-Palooza is an event that we are having at Orange County WordCamp, which is July 9th and 10th here in Irvine, California.
You can't get tickets now, so sorry.
But there's a lot of things that actually carry through from just general work practices over to side projects. One being, it's really easy to start a project. It's really hard to finish one.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
Projects don't tend to have an end.
Are you saying that follow through counts?
No, not at all. That's crazy talk. I mean,
not in side projects.
No, but I've got probably 30 odd side projects that I've started, got anywhere from maybe 1 hour to 30 hours of time I spent puttering around on them that have never launched, just because it was more of an interesting thought experiment at the time, not something that I really cared enough about to push through to completion, which is great because you can learn a lot just by doing that. But to actually push it through once you've shipped it, then you can actually have folks that are seeing it and use it as an example and as a way to bolster yourself up.
George, if I'm hearing you right, what I think you just said is you have a bunch of desktop servers spinned up on your computer, but they've gone nowhere. Is that what you're saying?
No, GitHub repositories, but
okay.
Well, I was thinking that he has a bunch of domain names that he's purchased that have expired. I really want to work on this, and then you're like, I'm sorry, I only have the .photography domain name or the .lemo or whatever.
Well, and there's something important about what George just said, right? So you've got 30-some-odd projects that you've started, and that's just you, right? So the only person involved in those projects is you. And I'm making that distinction because if you start a side project with somebody else, you want to be realistic about your time and the time that they're going to be put in. They're going to put in, and again, make sure it's the right fit and make sure those expectations are set up front.
Definitely.
Because
follow through
any
counts.
Relationship.
Well, that's true.
It's like any relationship.
That is true.
Sorry.
So one of the side
I'm making drawing parallels, the bigger picture here.
One of the side projects that I do a lot is presentations for WordCamps and meetups. And I end up what?
Specifically, Orange County in Irvine, California, on July. No, just kidding.
So you end up learning a lot from teaching as well, and that's a huge thing. I'll start putting together a presentation, and I'll learn something new, and it'll go a totally different direction.
Well, Robert, we do this a lot where we ask the people in our meetup group, what would you like to learn? And it's somebody says, I'd like to learn this, and it was something that you and I both have not thought of presenting, and I think it just ups our skills a little bit more.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Well, it's our day off, so we're going to do a half show today. See ya.
Drop the mic.
Now,
What can follow that?
for me, I like learning stuff while I'm doing it. Like I really, sitting there doing a whole bunch of research and stuff. That's all fine and good, but really, it's like real world examples of how this is going to work out works great for me. So I'll typically buy a domain name, set it all up, tell a whole bunch of people about it, and hopefully don't abandon it in the next year.
That's what I was going to say. Your side projects are different than other people's side projects, Jason, because your side projects turn into 3-year experiments where we've been on the air every week for those 3 years. You launch your stuff. You do involve other people. Your side projects that you're doing, you create entities and make it happen. So your side projects are kind of like realized. They're self-actualizing your side projects versus the George and possibly the Say who just have a million strewn sites that you're like, oh well.
Self-actualizing. Are we talking about Maslow's hierarchy of side projects now?
Yes.
My favorite part.
We are, George.
First, you get yourself involved, then you get your family involved, then you get your work involved.
No, that's not Maslow. That's an MLM period right there.
Yeah.
My favorite part about Jason is I will be like, hey, I'm going to start this side project on, whatever, and Jason's like, listen, I already wrote a blog thing about it. There's this YouTube thing I made. I was testing it 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, it just came out yesterday. Yeah, but I was part of the beta, and I was trying this thing, and...
Yeah.
Seriously, it's real. It's the real thing.
Either jump on it or don't jump on it. That's the thing. And if you're just gonna sit around and kind of stare at it, well, if you're just gonna sit around and stare at it and go, well, I don't know if I should actually start working on this project or not. I just want to get in there and do it, and so that's kind of where where I come
Everything
from.
you said just now is great.
If this was the Dradcast, the name of this episode would be called "Jump on It" or "Don't Jump on It." Like that's.
Like the nuclear song?
I think it's great that you continually think of alternative Dradcast titles for the water cooler.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me happy on some weird level. So really, going back to that Maslow's hierarchy of side projects, I just want to because that was one of the greatest things I've ever heard. The first thing you need to take care of is your brain, and then you need to feel safe. Okay, just kidding.
And your heart.
and then you need to take care of feeling like you belong. And then,
for those of you who aren't familiar with Maslow, Steve, can you look it up on Wikipedia for him?
No.
I was on the wrong computer for that. Sorry.
Can I ask what are some of the side projects that you guys are willing / able / want to talk about that you would like to expose, like Sarah's cat?
Which ones am I not embarrassed of, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, or something that is an idea that you wouldn't actually turn into something that's going to make
Okay.
$1 million.
Well,
because I know everyone's got that side project also, but we don't want to share because, you know.
You'll all steal my ideas.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I got bored.
We all signed an NDA.
5 years ago, I got bored and wrote a project management plugin called Ndizi, which is Swahili for banana, as in come Mr. Banana Man telling me banana.
Is that like Hello Dolly?
At the time.
That's amazing.
But, the code was horrible and awful, but I got like over 10,000 downloads on it, and I still get emails from people that use it.
And then you abandoned
I don't know
it.
why.
And now you're one of those people.
What George just said is that even his worst code gets more downloads than my best code, is what that says.
That is what he said, actually. Yes, specifically.
I didn't say it was my worst
what
code. I said it was bad.
What about y'all's?
I had a side project called Real Estate Shows that I literally started as a side project as a weekend thing that turned into a business.
Hey, Steve, did Heisenberg start off as a side project, and then did you merge that into something that you fleshed out? Like, how did that start?
No, we actually set out to do that as a starter theme.
Oh.
Yeah. It wasn't a side project;
like
it was a real project.
Yeah, that's based on our how every single one of our themes start.
We actually put company hours into that project.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I still maintain the band sites that I built in my last job. It also, I just feel like it also just helps me like keep on top of how you actually make a WordPress website, because God knows we can't charge for my code at Zeek. And I think that's
part of it for me.
No way, dude.
That's part of it for me. Is that like a lot of the side projects that I have are, for example, the band website for my band, my sisters in my band, or other side projects that are, like I was saying at the top of the show, are with people or are for people, and so that really fills that need. Although you can't experiment as much, I like the experimental part where it's just you and you can be like, do whatever, and you don't have to actually worry about like anyone's like business model or like any of that stuff. So, or they're like fans or it being live. None of that. I like those ones. I like the ones you don't have to tell people about, because then it's just you playing in your little sandbox in the corner. I might be giving away too much about my psychology right now.
So I have a side project. A little dog came into our life, and he was chipped but not registered. The breeder went out of business, and so I wanted to start a project where it was an easy way to look up a chip or to come up with something in a smartphone where you could scan a chip. And so I tried numerous ways, and then you had to sync with databases where every dog has been registered, and it was horrible just trying to put all that data together. That was a side project that just went away after a while.
You learned from it. You learned that I don't want to do this.
Yeah, but unlike Thomas Edison, I never found a way to invent a light bulb. I just found 2,000 ways of how not to invent a light bulb.
Well, it's just like what Chris was saying earlier, is that you have to kind of test the market a little bit, and the only way to do that is to be the customer, be the customer and figure it out and say, here's what I really want to end up with, but unfortunately I'm going to have to go through all these hoop jumps to get there. Maybe it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
It's a good, relatively low-risk way to experiment and get your skills better so that you can apply them to what you really do.
The other way to kind of have a side project, or like get this bug out, or like work on stuff, there are a few of these, or not like organizations, but organized groups that happen around. I know that Alex Vasquez is doing one coming up in the fall. He's doing like a nonprofit website weekend where a bunch of people get together and build in, basically 2 days websites for nonprofits and help them, take it to the next level. And so those are great ways to kind of experiment a little bit, but also to just like maybe do a different part of work that you do less of, but still have some skill set in. So that can be fun. It's like a side project weekend, just to kind of do stuff that's not as intense as if you
we do that here,
like a hackathon.
I signed up for that.
We do a thing like that here in Vegas. It's called Give Camp, where we find non-profits and charities and stuff who they can't afford the resources to find somebody to write content or to do copy blogging or to build this for them. So we donate an entire weekend and get them up with whatever they need. And I've learned plenty of skills from that, where I didn't know that a company wanted something like this, so let's write a plugin for that.
That's cool.
Well, and that can also help, like, because now you're working with, random groups of people, so it's also kind of like a crash course in interacting with teams, especially if you're a freelancer. That can be a nice experience to be part of a team rather than being responsible for the entire thing. So you can kind of like just get into that one thing that you do, or that you don't do so often, but you want to, like I said, you want to get more into. So those exist kind of across the states. Like Give or Website Weekend, which is linked in the notes.
It's really nice to actually jump out of what I do day to day to help other people and say, I didn't realize that X amount of companies actually needed this, and maybe I should focus a little more attention onto something along this to help the 30, 40 websites that might have this thing, every year.
I think the thing about our profession specifically, or making websites, is that because it's always changing, we have to, as developers, as even just content developers, as people using these tools, whatever they happen to be, we have to stay on it. And I think that is where side projects really come in, because you might do some research to answer a certain question that bridges you into something else. And so it's like, it's a way to like keep those skills sharp, learn new things without, like the responsibility of it being production.
So I think specifically as it relates to that, say most of the longer articles I write that are tutorials come from side projects. So a client asks for, or a prospect or someone on Facebook or someone in Twitter asks a question about how to do something, and you realize I'm not sure, like I'm pretty sure how to do it, I don't know that I know the steps, and so you spin up a site, you build it all out, you walk through the steps, you take the pictures, you write up the article, and then the article ends up having kind of a lifeline of its own because it's been explicitly helpful to someone to walk through it. And so I think you can use side efforts, whether it's for a customer or for yourself, to do that. The other way that I use side projects is to generate revenue, right? So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of side spare change, right? And so if you can spin up a
Hey, Chris, is that where your presenter series on Vimeo came from? Like, a lot of people were asking you, how do you go about setting up talks, or how do you become a better speaker? Did that start off as a side project?
So that was one of those things where I gave enough material out that I eventually said, let's turn this into a little video course. Eventually that would come back over to one of the sites, but that's another site that I haven't launched. But Beyond Good is a leadership blog, right? And then my Headphone Collection that just rolled out this weekend is a headphone review site, right? And these are little things, but the headphone review site, I'm just going to review a whole bunch of different headphones that I already own. I own a lot, and then
people will send you more, and you won't be mad at that either.
Right, and the links are affiliate links to Amazon, right? It's not going to be a full-time living, but pretty sure that most people don't hate on having like right now I am in between jobs and my family lives off the blog at chrislema.com, right? That's those are nice side projects.
See, when does it become a side project or a project? What's the difference? What would you guys?
Well-
Because I would classify a side project not necessarily as like a side business or a sideline, which is what you call it in the biz. A sideline is like what George can't do at Automatic and have like a side source of income. So I would personally classify a side project as something that you don't necessarily do for money, or don't monetize. But
No, wait, not though, because I mean, I personally have found that whenever any free work that I have ever done, the client did not take it seriously, even if it was, their supposed business model.
Well,
it's really weird that way. It's true.
Say, being a musician like yourself, a lot of my side band projects start as like, let's just get a couple people in a room and try to find a new sound that we can come up with. And once we come up with 3 or 4 like songs that we think are great, maybe let's experiment with the show. I think that starts off as my side projects, is like, let's see what I can do with this and see if I can work it to something. But a lot of the time, it just turns out to be a couple guys in the garage jamming on a guitar, So I think that distinction between side project and something that can turn into a business is like, are you just there to jam, or are you there to actually find the sound to produce and to sell eventually?
I think that also puts a different spin on one's approach. If you're really approaching it in terms of experimentation and exploration, I think it has a different just tone to oneself than if you're like, how can I monetize this, or how could this, become a sideline? So it's a different mindset. One's experimental, and the other one is, has a more specific goal in mind. So that's, I think, the difference to me.
I disagree. I do think you can have a experiment to see if it'll generate revenue without high expectation or targets, and then when it does, or if it does, it can become more important, right? People they can transition from an experiment to, wow, this is taking off, it's actually becoming a business, even if when they start it, they don't have to, right? So I think sometimes, like, if you're starting a business, start a business, right? And that's, I think, what you're talking about, right? You're going to start a business, start with objectives, start with targets, start with everything, make it serious. And if you're just experimenting, just experiment. I think a lot of times with side businesses, I start as an experiment to see if it will get traction to turn into something that generates revenue, right?
Sure.
And so I think you can play in that middle space.
I mean, I started building websites on the side because it had been years that I was trying to use code to get out of the music industry. And then, my last job, I had kind of combined the two. And then I left that job and started working I started working with coders full time because, anyway. We're real coders.
Sarah, is that when Tower Records went out of business? That's when you decided to get out of music and get into code?
You know what? Actually, I remember when Tower went out, and I think I had just started in the music industry, and it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is...
I picked the wrong thing on the job board is what that comes to.
Yeah. So, I did night school to learn PHP, and then, it still took years after that.
Yeah, I think that it's for us type of people, for developers, having it be a place where, like, for example, with my clients, I do a lot of content development. It's gotten a lot more marketing, a lot more training, and I miss coding, like, a lot. Like, there's something to be said about, like, being inside the computer. There's something to be said about making those things work. And so I've been doing a lot of things like that just on my own, and they're not for anything at all, but just because I miss it, and I want to, keep sharp on that. Like, the tech changes. Like, every time WordPress comes out, there's new stuff, there's new things going on, and, I want to play around with things like the REST API and see what's going on so I can stay current. And also, so if I want to go back into that, and so I still understand what's happening on that side of the riverbanks, as it were.
Did you dictate that, say, or did the market dictate, like, going from developing to writing content? Because I know you've talked about this a lot, but was that something that you just said, I noticed that the market is shifting, so I'm going to go more towards content?
It's more because for me specifically, to do that coding and have that, it's a different relationship with the client that is more committed, and because of all of my sidelines, I can't maintain that kind of focus. So the work that I do, you know, the money work is less involved that way, and so coding became more on the fun times.
Awesome. Well, we are all done for today. Thank you for hanging out and being part of my side project. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go over to our website at WPwatercooler.com and click on the links there to subscribe. You can also check out the show over on Thursdays. We do a show called WPblab. Go check that out. Thank you, folks. You have a good rest of your one. Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.